I barely slept Friday night. What if this backfired? What if his family took his side? What if I froze up and couldn't go through with it? By Saturday morning, I had chewed my nails down to nothing and mentally played out about 17 different scenarios in my head. Around noon, Ryan texted again. Looking forward to seeing you tonight. Wear something nice, my parents are excited. I didn't respond. Let him think whatever he wanted. I spent the afternoon getting ready with a weird mix of dread and anticipation. Vanessa helped me with my hair and gave me a pep talk when I started losing my nerve. At 5:30, I got in my car and headed to his parents' house. I had to pull over once because my hands were shaking too much to drive safely. I sat there for a minute, doing those breathing exercises from that meditation app I downloaded months ago but never actually used. What was I doing? Was this crazy? Maybe I should just block Ryan on everything and move on with my life like a normal person. But then I thought about him sitting there at his birthday dinner, probably telling everyone some fake version of our relationship, maybe even making himself the victim somehow, and my resolve hardened. I pulled up to his parents' house at 6:15, fashionably late, which I knew would annoy Ryan. There were several cars already in the driveway. Looked like the whole family was there. I checked my makeup in the rearview mirror, took one last deep breath, and walked to the door. Ryan's dad opened it with a big smile and a hug, ushering me inside. The house smelled like Tina's famous pot roast, and for a second, I felt a pang of sadness. I genuinely liked Ryan's family, and this would probably be the last time I'd see them. I rounded the corner into the living room, and there was Ryan, drink in hand, mid-laugh at something his cousin said. He froze when he saw me, clearly not expecting me to actually show up despite what he told his family. The look on his face was priceless. For a split second, panic flashed across his features before he composed himself and came over with a fake smile. He gave me a stiff hug and whispered, "You actually came. We need to talk privately." I just smiled and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I wouldn't miss your birthday for anything, especially since you've been telling everyone we have big news to share." The color drained from his face. Tina clapped her hands excitedly and asked if this was what she thought it was. Ryan's sister gave me a knowing look. His dad started joking about finally getting grandkids. Ryan gripped my elbow a little too tight and tried to steer me toward the hallway, but his mom called out that dinner was ready and everyone needed to sit down. As we all took our seats around the dining table, with Ryan nervously watching my every move, my phone buzzed with a text from Cody. "On my way, 15 minutes out." Ryan leaned over and hissed, "What are you doing here?" "I thought after the restaurant." I just smiled sweetly and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Oh, I wouldn't miss the chance to tell your family about what happened at that restaurant, Ryan. I'm sure they'd love to hear that story." The look of absolute panic on his face as his mom started bringing out the food was worth every second of anxiety it took to get there. Game on. Second update, the dinner drama continues. I'm finally ready to share what happened at Ryan's birthday dinner. Sorry for the delay. I needed a mental health day after all this drama, plus my Wi-Fi has been acting up because my neighbor borrowed my password and apparently downloaded the entire internet. So where did we leave off? Right, me sitting at the dinner table with Ryan's family while he panicked about what I might say. There I was, surrounded by Ryan's family. His parents, Tina and Ralph, his sister Kayla, his grandma, and two cousins whose names I always mix up. The table was loaded with Tina's famous pot roast, those buttery mashed potatoes I've literally dreamed about, and a fancy salad that nobody was going to eat but everyone would pretend to appreciate. The first 20 minutes were straight up awkward. Ryan kept trying to control the conversation while shooting me these warning glances. I just smiled and passed the bread rolls, enjoying the way his left eye twitched every time I opened my mouth. Petty? Maybe? Satisfying? Absolutely. Tina kept the conversation flowing, bless her. She asked about my family, my job, the usual small talk. When she mentioned how proud they all were of Ryan's big promotion, I nearly choked on my water. I glanced at Ryan, whose face had gone the exact shade of the beets on the table. Ryan jumped in, talking about how his team was crushing their targets and how his boss was practically grooming him for senior management. I just nodded along, watching him dig himself deeper with each word. Ralph, who's always been the quiet type, suddenly asked Ryan about the Johnson account. Apparently, Ryan had been telling his dad about some huge deal he was supposedly leading. Ryan's answer was so vague it could have been a horoscope, something about strategic pivots and leveraging core competency that literally meant nothing. His sister, Kayla, caught my eye across the table. She's always been the skeptical one in the family, the type to Google facts during arguments and call people out on their BS. She raised an eyebrow at me, like, is he for real right now? That's when Tina brought up the future. She asked us about our big news and whether it had anything to do with us taking the next step. Ryan nearly dropped his fork and mumbled something about it not being the right time to discuss it. His grandma, who has zero filter and is my absolute favorite person in his family, cuts in with, "So, are you two moving in together, or what? Because Ryan said you were looking at apartments together." Again, news to me. The furthest we'd gotten in that conversation was me once saying, maybe we should think about combining our Netflix accounts to save money. Ryan tried steering the conversation back to himself, talking his boss had given him a company card for business expenses. I couldn't help myself. I asked, what kind of expenses is he authorized to approve? He stammered something about client dinners and team outings. That's when I casually mentioned, oh, speaking of dinners, Ryan took me to this amazing restaurant last week. What was it called again, honey? The one where you met up with Leonard and Pablo.